So, of course, it's the long weekend, and, there's a lot more demand for fuel this weekend than there are on other weekends. And also right now in the fuel industry, the production levels aren't as high as they would like them to be. So prices have spiked up. And, of course, it's every politician's favorite punching bag, the idea that there's collusion among the oil companies to set the prices higher on long weekends because, I don't know, maybe they really don't like long weekends. Because, people never need fuel any other time except long weekends. And so that's when they're sticking it to you. Because you don't need it other times. Like, for example, you don't need fuel to get to work every day, or, to get to the doctor's on a Wednesday. No, you only need fuel on long weekends, and that's why, say the conspiracy theorists, they're sticking it to you on the long weekend. They're spiking up their price just to throw the wrench into the gears. They're trying to rip you off. They're price gouging. Well, they're not price gouging. The very concept is ridiculous. Look, if you're happy enough to pay the price for the fuel, then no one can say any injustice was done. If you don't want to buy the fuel, don't buy it. If you don't want to operate an automobile on fuel that costs a price that you're not willing to pay, don't buy an automobile. Ride a bicycle, take a train, take a bus. Change your fuel system to propane. There's any number of things you can do. Use an electric car. They do exist now, In any event, politicians just cannot resist pandering to this conspiracy theory that the oil companies are all trying to pick on you only on long weekends like May 2-4 weekend. So in any event, naturally on the Thursday, yesterday, Joe Tascona, who's a progressive conservative, put in a private member's bill which would require gasoline companies, I'm not sure at what level, whether it was a retailer or whether it was the producer of the fuel, because the bill isn't yet available online, but the basic idea is they have to let you know if prices are going to go up, and they have to let you know that 3 days in advance. And of course today then John Tory wants to take advantage of Friday. There's little going on. They're breaking for a week, and he puts out a media release that says that these gas companies, these gasoline companies have to be more transparent. They have to explain themselves. They have to, and I'm not joking, he said, justify their prices.
I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways.
Well, look, when you go and buy Twinkies at the grocery store, how come you don't have to justify that price, Mr. Grocer? Well, because any price that someone's willing to pay is a just price. The only thing that would make a price unjust is if you were holding a gun to someone's head. If Twinkies go up to $100 and nobody buys them, well, that's not unjust to the Twinkie producer. It just means the Twinkie producer is being unrealistic about what he can expect to get in exchange for the Twinkies. The same thing goes for fuel. And the fact that you really, really need fuel doesn't change the morality of anything. Need is not a moral value. It's not like they're saying you have to be a member of a special club in order to buy fuel. You simply have to pay what everybody else is quite willing to pay. If the fuel producer put the price to $1.10 and nobody wants to pay over 90 cents, well then you won't have to pay over 90 cents because they'll drop the price to 90 cents. And if they don't, they won't sell any fuel and they'll soon find themselves with bills racking up as they're paying their employees for fuel that isn't being sold. That a company should try to get as much as it can for its product, and that's the whole point of running a business, to try and maximize profit. That is why you exist as a business. It's why you exist as an employee. You don't see people saying, well, he's wage gouging, he's asking for too much for his services. He really isn't, you ever notice, right when the employer needs him for those extra overtime hours, he's always gouging the employer for time and a half? You never hear that kind of argument, do you?
I'm starting with the man.
employee seeks to get as high a wage as he can possibly get, and that is the wage that the employer is willing to pay and still hire him. There's no sin in asking for a high wage. For the exact same reason, there's no sin in asking for a higher price to be paid. And of course, if someone's willing to pay it, then bravo! You've met whatever the market is willing to pay. That's all it is. It's an agreement between a purchaser and a seller. There's no further justification required. Everyone's happy. The guy who wanted the fuel got the fuel. The guy who wanted the money in exchange for the fuel got money in exchange for the fuel. Nobody held a gun to anybody's head. Everyone got what they wanted. There's no basis to call this, unjust. And if there's nothing unjust about it, there's no need to justify it. I mean, let's be realistic, first of all. It's a private member's bill. It has very little chance of being made law. But that's not the point. The point is that they actually tried to make it a law. And that's disgusting enough. I mean, imagine if they were successful in getting this bill through. So it's Tuesday afternoon, and you see this announcement by the gas companies. I guess, I don't know, maybe they'd have to post it on their fuel board where they tell you the current price. They, I suppose, would have to tell you what the price is going to be 3 days from now. And so you're driving by and you see that this fuel that currently costs, $1 will cost $1.10 in 3 days. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to rush right into the gas station, even if you only need a quarter tank of gas. And so is everyone else. Everyone's priority is immediately going to be turned to lining up for gas. And you've been in these situations where everyone wants gas at the same time. What happens? They run out. They run out of gas. Why? Well, because the price isn't any higher. It's the same price and everyone knows it's going up, so they all rush and get it. And then you're 32nd in line, halfway up the street, lined up, and that's no joke. That's what happens. You've seen it. People lining up way up the street, blocking a whole lane of traffic because they're trying to avoid, paying more in the future, or they're afraid that there won't be any available. Well, that's exactly what will happen. Everyone will become all too acquainted with the fact that whenever these prices are warned to go up 3 days from now, that everyone's going to rush to the gas station, and that it takes time for the fuel to come back. And if you know you're going to need fuel tomorrow or the next day, you're going to rush out and get that top up, just like everybody else, because you know as a fact that because everyone was warned of a price increase, there's going to be no fuel in those tanks tomorrow. You're going to have to wait, and you can't afford not to have gas. That's what this bill will do. It's absolute insanity. Now, what about the situations where there's a lack of fuel production? There's been bad weather in the Gulf, and a refining plant has gone down, or I don't know, maybe someone destroys a plant, or there's a fire. And there has been a fire in a fuel refinery just recently. And as a result, production goes down suddenly. Now, at that point, there's a shortage of fuel. There's an actual shortage of fuel compared to what people will need over the course of the next week or two. And what happens? Well, then prices go up, don't they? Well, they should. Why shouldn't they? Well, what happens if they don't? Well, let's say that the price is 90 cents, and then a fuel plant catches on fire, and it's going to be out of commission for a couple of weeks. And so there's going to be insufficient supply of fuel for the next couple of weeks. And that means that, somebody's going to have no fuel in their tank. Well, prices, by raising the prices, the only people willing to pay at the higher price are the people who need the gas most. The people who can afford to wait, or the people who aren't going very far. The people who drive, from here to the corner store 3 times a week, and that's the only thing they use their car for. Well, they can go a month without a tank of fuel. But the guy who needs to get to Windsor tomorrow from Toronto, well, he's going to rush out and get the fuel right away, and he's going to pay that extra 20 cents because, unlike other people, he needs that fuel to be in that tank tomorrow. So what happens? People who don't need the gas as much don't pay for it. They don't buy it. They wait for the price to come back down. But the people who really need it badly, they get it when they need it because they pay the higher price. The price system is a way of making sure that when gas is in short supply, it goes to the people who need it most. It's a way of making sure that people get fuel when they need it. But if you keep prices low, if that guy who I'm talking about, who only goes, uses a tank of gas per month, sees that fuel is going to be 90 cents today and tomorrow and the next day, but it's going to go up, and he doesn't know for how long, well, he might just decide, you know what the heck, I'm going to go in the gas station and top up anyway. And that messes everything up, doesn't it? Now the people who really, really need it are not going to have it, because people who didn't really, really need it figured they'd top up at the lower price. The price system is a benefit to us. It is not a detriment to us. The Dan McTaggs of the world, and everybody who subscribes to his conspiracy theory, and apparently that's just about everybody in the Ontario legislature, the favorite phrase for these guys is price gouging. Okay, and the idea is that somebody is gouging you, gouging your wallet, taking money out of your wallet, taking advantage of the fact that you need fuel and therefore charging you more. So what this bill would do, this Tory bill, it would allow people to gouge the gas companies of all of the profit that they wanted to make when the price was higher. So in other words, let's say there's quite a legitimate reason why the fuel price has to go up, 5 cents on Saturday, and it's Tuesday, all right? And so on Saturday, they'd like to raise the price right away because one of their refineries just caught on fire and they suddenly don't have supply. There's an interruption in supply. But no problem, that's not a problem that the Act cares about. They're going to have to wait 3 days before they can raise their prices. So they're actually going to have to sell fuel below cost now. I say below cost because without creating that supply of fuel, because their plant's on fire, they've got to recoup their revenues from other sources. They've got to recoup those revenues by increasing the price of the fuel that they have made, that they can make. What the Tory bill would do, though, is allow people to buy that fuel that has to be sold at a higher price to make up for the loss due to the fire. And it would allow people to buy at that artificially low price, which means that it would be forcing the fuel companies to be selling the fuel they've already made, or the fuel that they can make, for the next 3 days at below cost. So it would allow the consumer to gouge the gasoline producer, to literally take gasoline at below cost, to take money out of the gasoline producer's wallet. Do you follow what I'm saying? The opposite of price gouging is fuel gouging. Forcing a company to give away fuel at lower than the price that they need to sell it at to make a profit. Now, what do you think will be the long-term effect of that? Do you really think they're going to tolerate that? Or do you think they're going to get their mathematicians together and say, look, how much do we have to raise the price on average to take into account the fact that we might lose a refinery from time to time? We might lose some productive capacity from time to time. And the mathematician goes back and he says, well, if you raise your price, 2 cents or 2.5 cents or 3 cents, even when you're only trying to get 1 cent of profit, if you instead make, 2.5 or 3 cents of profit or 4 cents of profit, then on average, even though, you're going to lose 4 cents when the Tories force you to sell below cost, on average, over the course of the year, you're going to even out. Okay, says the gas company, I guess that's what we're going to have to do. So now instead of making 1 cent by selling for 95 cents, when the supply's all there, instead they're going to maybe sell for 98 cents and make a 4 cent profit. Why? Because over the course of the year, there are going to be times when they're going to have to raise the price to $1, but they're going to have to wait 3 days, and so they're going to have to sell at a loss for those 3 days, a 4 cent loss. So just to make it on average, they're going to have to charge more than they need to charge in order to make sure that they don't suffer a loss in the future when, they're forced to sell at below cost. You see, you cannot play with prices and win. They will always find a way to make sure that they don't sell below cost. They have to find a way, or else they would go out of business. This is completely misguided. or it's naive, or it's just dishonest manipulation of the voting public. But don't fall for it. Boy, you gotta love the spring, eh? Have a good long weekend.